Stop sterilizing your substrate, or at least do it right. Hello creature lovers and welcome to the universe. My name is Martin from Creepy Creatures Universe, and today we are talking about sterilizing substrates, methods, what it actually does for the substrate, what's the goal, what it's made for, and what we are actually reaching. I'm feeling like an anchorman today because I have my notes here and I really need them today. Fact is, and that's the hard truth, most of you are wasting time and electricity with the ways you're sterilizing your substrate. And I'm gonna tell you why, and I'm gonna I would not say deep dive, you can dive much deeper into the topic than I do it today, but I think we'll cover everything about the common sterilizing methods. Let's start with the definition of sterilizing. In reality, sterilizing means the elimination of 100% of all life. So no bacteria, no fungus, no microorganisms, no virus, nothing. And what we are doing in the hobby actually is a cold or a heat treatment and has nothing to do with sterilizing. Let's start with why are we doing it? What is the goal? The goal is to get rid of hitchhikers and bad microorganisms like fungus, like bacteria, and like viruses. That's the hard facts, and that's why we're doing it. So let's start with method number one, the freezer. I read it a lot of times. Put it in the freezer for 2 days and you are fine. You're not. Fact is, a standard freezer hits about -18 to -24 degrees Celsius, which it is in Fahrenheit will stand somewhere here. And this means it kills all the adult bugs in the substrate, but not really, because depending on where you live and how full your freezer is and how long it takes to freeze the whole substrate, maybe some of them are also overcome that thing. How does it look with fungus and bacteria and viruses? It's a big nope. Why is it a nope? Pretty simple. You know what they do in a laboratory to preserve bacteria and viruses for decades? Right, they freeze it. So you're preserving it and not killing it. For viruses, there's actually a completely different thing. Actually, they aren't alive. They are just DNA or RNA in a protein. So what we say is life actually doesn't matter to them or doesn't fit for them. So you can't freeze them. You can't kill them with freezing. You're just preserving them. And what's next is you are reducing the microorganism numbers. Why? Because water is freezing slower, and through the crystals, it will harm some of the microorganisms. But fact is, when it comes to freezing, we kill bugs. Depending on where you live, you don't kill the eggs from the bugs. They will just rest and think it's winter. You won't kill bacteria, or you will kill bacteria, but not the endospore form of bacteria. What are endospores? I know it's a lot of dry stuff today. Endospores are basically an armored version of the bacteria. When the conditions for the bacteria aren't right, they are going into this endospore stadium, and it's an armored version to overcome decades or hundreds of years in this stage, surviving. So, which means the freezer is out of sterilization. Next is the heat treatment or the oven. I don't know who's come up with it and thought you can put it over everything, or is it just somebody said it works and everybody reads it and says, oh, it works, so it works. I read a lot. Put your substrate in the oven, 100 to 120 degrees Celsius for an hour. Yes, it will kill all the bugs in the substrate for sure. And maybe also some of the eggs, or it's pretty near, you kill a lot of the eggs. What's with bacteria? Yes, you can kill bacteria, but once again, we have endospores, and with 100 to 120 degrees in the oven, it's just a whirlpool for them or something like that, whirlpool without water, or a day on the beach. They can survive 150 degrees Celsius plus over a few hours. So baking endospores with 100 to 120 degrees Celsius in the oven for an hour is just a little tickle for them. It does nothing. Next thing is, what a lot of people forget is dirt or substrate and wood is a pretty good isolation material. So baking a big chunk of wood at 100 degrees does not mean the wood inside reaches these 100 degrees. So it's outside treatment, not inside treatment. Same goes for a big pile of dirt. If you have a pile of dirt, the temperature on the outside is different than the temperature on the inside. And that's a big point. Even bugs can survive in there. So the oven, in my opinion, is a cool thing to try something if you need it pretty quick, but that's it. You don't sterilize on a baking sheet. The next thing is 100-degree dry heat is a whole other thing than 100-degree wet heat or pressured heat, but we come to that later. And we have another big problem with both of these methods. It makes no difference if it's the freezer or the oven. You always have one big problem. A lot of beneficial microorganisms are pretty sensitive. So with your baking and your freezing, you're killing a lot of the fragile beneficial microorganisms, and the stronger microorganisms that can be harmful, not must be, but can be, that survive that treatment have a clean surface to colonize because you eliminated everything else. Think about that. So you preserve the way for the enemy. And also, when you put this sterilized substrates into a bin, you expose them to the air, and there are spores and everything in the air. And do you know what's the first colonizer? Fungus. Of course, it's mold. So now we know that neither the freezer or the oven is sterilizing your substrate. What would sterilize your substrate? So in my opinion, there are just two ways that you can use in your kitchen or in your breeding room. Number one is the autoclave or a big pressure cooker. I know in the US you are in the promised land with the 100 liter or the 50 liter pressure cookers. Here in Europe, we are happy when we can get an affordable with about 6 to 7 liters. So this is one way. With the pressure cooker, you're heating up to 121 degrees, and there should be about 2 bar inside. I think it's 2 bar or 2 psi. I write it here. I don't have it in mind right now. And you're doing it for about 20 minutes, and the time is starting when the middle of the substrate reaches the 121 degrees. Not further, not when the pressure valve goes up. That just means the pot reached the 121 degrees, not the inside of the substrate. This is one method to be sure and 100% safe. 100% safe. And there's a second method that's called the sterilization. And this is with the oven. So it's from, I think, mushroom breeders invented it. They put the substrate in jars. There is no need for that, I think, but it's better to put it in jars because when you take it out of the oven, you don't get contamination in. And it is a pretty simple system. You take the substrate, you heat it up for about an hour to 100 degrees Celsius. Once again, in the middle of the substrate. And this kills all the active bacteria. Then you put the oven out, leave it for 24 hours, which makes the endospores think they overcome the heat and they start to come to life again. And after 24 hours, you're once again heating them up to 100 degrees Celsius for about 20 plus minutes and let it cool down again. And we're doing this a third time. And after this, you are somewhere near sterilization. It's not sterilized, but it's pretty near. So I know what you think. You're thinking, should I really do this to sterilize my substrate? And you're right with this thought. My thoughts are, when I make substrate, I have 400 to 600 liters. How should I bake or freeze 600 liters of substrate? Yes, of course, now in the winter, but that can't be the goal. You see, all this kitchen chemistry, what we are doing, is nonsense. The game changer is pretty simple. Just dry out your substrate. Why? Pretty simple. Let's cover the whole thing. We have bacteria, we have viruses, we have fungus, and we can cluster them. Let's make one. Let's say microorganisms. And we have hitchhikers. We have these two parts we want to get rid of. Does the freezer get rid of hitchhikers? Yes. Does the oven get rid of hitchhikers? Yes. Does drying get rid of hitchhikers? Yes. Does freezing get rid of microorganisms? No. Does heating get rid of microorganisms? No. Does drying get rid of microorganisms? No. So we're on the same base. Drying equals baking or freezing. I think it's even better because you're not cleaning the whole surface. And for this, yeah, I know what you think now. You're thinking, oh my God, that's a risk all the time. No, it's not. If you're baking or freezing, it's also a risk all the time. And there is a type of risk management. You use a small bin with 10 to 15 isopods, and if you make a new batch of substrate, you test it. If they're fine after 2 months, the substrate is good to go. And I know what's coming up now. Oh my God, using isopods for testing substrate, that's animal cruelty. When you're freezing or baking and put this substrate into your bins, it's also testing because you don't know if it's free of all the stuff you don't want in. So it's the same setup, just with all your animals, not with a small testing group. So testing the biosensor or something, I don't know how you want to call it, makes substrate safe. And that's what you should do. Dry it, test it, use it. And that's the best sentence to finish the video. So nothing more to say besides, I know this is a controversial opinion. And I know some of you will have another opinion. But you can do the research on everything I said. And If I am wrong with something, correct me in the comments and tell me in the comments how many time you have spent in front of the oven waiting for your sterilized substrate. Uh, Nothing more to say. Wish you all the best. Have a great week and see you in the universe. Bye bye.